Commissioner Gordon. Bane has escaped.
Most live under the illusion that fulfillment is somewhere ahead, just beyond the next achievement, the next milestone, the next validation from the world. They push forward, convinced that once they arrive, life will finally feel complete. But that moment never comes. The finish line keeps shifting, the goalposts move, and no matter how much is achieved, an unsettling emptiness lingers. The pursuit becomes endless, and with it, the exhaustion of always chasing something just out of reach. The ones who break free from this cycle understand something fundamental. The process itself is where life happens. The struggle, the work, the endless repetition that tests every ounce of patience. This is where transformation occurs. No trophy, no status, no final destination will ever provide the depth of change that comes from enduring the journey itself. It strips away what no longer serves, revealing what is real, what is resilient, what cannot be taken away. The habit of looking too far ahead steals the only thing that can be controlled, this moment. It leads to restless anticipation, to an obsession with outcomes, to missing what is happening now in favor of what might happen later. The mind becomes divided, unable to fully engage because it is trapped between regret and expectation. And in that state, even the greatest victories feel hollow because they were never truly experienced. The road is never smooth. It tests, it demands, it breaks apart old patterns, leaving only what is necessary. Some see this as struggle, something to be endured only until the reward arrives. Others see it as the refining fire that creates something unshakable. The process itself is the proof of growth. Every challenge forces adaptation, every obstacle sharpens awareness, every failure brings another layer of understanding. Without these moments, progress is an illusion. The rush to arrive faster, to bypass the uncomfortable parts, to claim success without experiencing the weight of effort, is the greatest mistake. The transformation only happens when every part of the road is embraced, when there is no resistance to the difficult days, when patience becomes the foundation. Those who understand this do not look ahead in desperation. They are fully immersed in what is happening now, knowing that everything they seek is already within the work. It is not about reaching the summit. It is about becoming the person capable of standing there. That change does not happen at the end. It happens in the smallest details, in the unseen hours, in the days when quitting seems easier than continuing. The version of yourself that exists now is not the version that will reach the goal. And the only way to bridge that gap is through absolute engagement with the process, without needing an immediate reward. Some spend their entire lives chasing a feeling that was never tied to a destination. They accumulate, they achieve, they collect the symbols of success, only to realize that none of it fills the space they thought it would. What they missed was the journey, the real source of fulfillment, the place where identity is shaped, where meaning is built. By the time this is understood, too much has already slipped away. The ones who find purpose in the process move differently. They do not rush past the moments that matter. They do not see effort as a sacrifice, but as a privilege. Every challenge is fuel. Every step forward is its own kind of success. The focus is no longer on arriving, but on moving with intention, knowing that mastery comes not from reaching an end point, but from living fully in the experience of getting there. A destination reached without growth along the way is meaningless. The road itself is where the transformation happens, where skills sharpen, where understanding deepens. To be fully present in that journey is to remove the illusion that happiness is waiting somewhere ahead. It is here now, built in the process, in the work, in the steps that most overlook, because they are too focused on what comes next. Let go of the idea that something in the future will complete what is already in motion. There is nothing waiting ahead that is more valuable than what exists in the effort being made today. The road is the reward. The challenge is the reward. The change happening in real time, this is the only thing that will ever matter. Stay in it, fully engaged, and let everything else fall away. It is a cruel design. The brain rewards the chase, not the capture. Anticipation floods the system with dopamine, making the pursuit feel electric, but the moment the prize is claimed, the excitement fades. What once seemed so significant is now just another checkpoint in an endless race. And so, the cycle repeats, always looking forward, always believing that happiness is just one more achievement away. But fulfillment is not something you find at the end of a journey. It is something forged within the journey itself. Those who accept the entropy of life do not break when things fall apart. They do not waste time mourning what was lost. They adjust. They move. They step forward, already recalculating, already adapting. They are not dependent on stability because they never expected it in the first place. They do not need life to be perfect. They only need to be prepared for whatever comes next. This is why the journey is the only thing that matters. The illusion of a final destination, of a perfect state where all problems cease to exist, is the greatest distraction from reality. There is no place to arrive. There is only movement, only change. The ones who live fully are the ones who accept this, who step into the unknown willingly, who let go of the need for certainty and learn to navigate the ever-shifting terrain of existence with precision and purpose. Nothing in existence remains stagnant. Everything is either growing or decaying, expanding or collapsing, strengthening or weakening. This is the nature of the universe. Galaxies drift apart, empires crumble, cells regenerate or die. The mind is no different. It is not a fixed entity, not something that can be preserved in its current state. The second it stops evolving, it begins deteriorating. This is not philosophy. It is physics. The law of entropy does not care about intention. Either you are sharpening, refining, expanding your awareness, or you are slipping into decline. Most assume they can pause, that they can reach a certain level of understanding, success, or skill and then simply maintain it. But there is no such thing as maintenance. There is no standing still. If motion ceases, decline begins. The ones who do not understand this spend their lives trying to hold on to a version of themselves that is already fading, unaware that the only way to stay sharp is to keep moving, to keep growing, to keep feeding the mind with new challenges before it withers from neglect. The ones who resist change, who avoid discomfort, who seek stability instead of progress, are the first to fade. Their minds shrink under the weight of repetition. Their thoughts become dull. Their abilities weaken. A muscle that is not used atrophies. A fire that is not fed burns out. And a mind that is not challenged decays into irrelevance. The process is slow at first, almost unnoticeable, but once the decline begins, it accelerates. By the time it is realized, it is already too late. To expand is to embrace discomfort, to willingly step into the unknown, to challenge old beliefs, to push past the mental resistance that demands ease. Those who remain sharp are those who seek friction, who do not allow the comfort of routine to dull their edge. They are always questioning, always learning, always breaking apart old patterns to build something stronger in their place. There is no final form, no moment where mastery is achieved and the work stops. The work never stops. The mind, like any system, requires stress to grow. Without resistance, there is no adaptation. The ones who keep evolving do so because they put themselves in positions where growth is the only option. They take on challenges that stretch their limits. They surround themselves with minds that force them to think deeper. They abandon the illusion of stability in favor of relentless progress. They do not seek rest, they seek refinement. Decay does not announce itself. It begins in the small things. The avoidance of a difficult conversation, the postponement of a necessary decision, the slow drift into habits that require no thought, no energy, no effort. It is subtle, insidious, creeping in under the disguise of comfort, convincing the mind that all is well when in reality, the foundation is already crumbling. And once the foundation is gone, everything else collapses with it. A mind that stops learning becomes a cage. It locks itself inside old perspectives, old fears, old patterns, repeating the same cycles until the person is nothing more than a shadow of who they could have been. The ones who keep expanding are never the same person they were a year ago. Their thoughts shift, their skills sharpen, their perspective widens. They do not fear the unknown. They pursue it. The ones who refuse to evolve are already falling behind. They may not feel it today, but in time, the decay will become undeniable. The sharpness will be gone. The mental agility will fade. The world will move forward and they will remain frozen in place, watching as others surpass them, wondering when it all started slipping away. The answer is simple. It started the moment they stopped growing. There is no standing still. You are either moving forward or you are being left behind. Expansion or decay, strength or atrophy, growth or decline. The choice is made every second of every day. If you are not feeding your mind, challenging it, pushing it beyond its limits, then it is already slipping into irrelevance. Those who break free from this illusion move differently. They do not chase, they engage. They immerse themselves fully in the process, unshaken by whether or not the world acknowledges their effort. Every action is its own reward, every struggle a sharpening stone. They do not wait for happiness to be granted. They create it in real time through discipline, through intensity, through absolute presence in their craft. They understand that mastery is not measured in trophies, but in the depth of engagement with the work itself. The pursuit of external validation is a weak foundation. Achievements fade, applause dies, recognition turns to dust. If self-worth is built upon these things, then it will always be unstable, always fragile, always at the mercy of forces outside of one's control. But the process, the work, the grind, the endless refinement of skill, this is something that cannot be taken away. It is the only thing that remains when everything else is stripped away. And the ones who understand this do not concern themselves with destinations. They are too busy mastering the path. This is why the journey must be the focus. Every struggle, every failure, every repetition strengthens the mind in ways no external reward ever could. It is within the discomfort, the challenge, the resistance that real transformation takes place. There is no glory without effort, no skill without repetition, no greatness without the willingness to embrace the grind. Those who cannot do this will always be searching, always reaching, always believing that fulfillment is something that exists in the future instead of something that must be cultivated now. The idea that happiness is something to be earned is the greatest deception of all. Happiness is not earned, it is experienced. And it can only be experienced when the mind stops chasing and starts engaging. The ones who truly understand this have no need for promises of future rewards. They are not waiting for a reason to feel alive. They are already immersed, already moving, already finding meaning in the act itself. And because of this, they become unstoppable. Not because they have reached the end, but because they have learned that the end was never the point. Most people will never understand this. They will continue running, convinced that fulfillment is somewhere ahead, forever out of reach. They will sacrifice years in pursuit of a mirage, never realizing that everything they were looking for was already within the work they were doing. And by the time they understand, it will be too late. The journey will have passed them by. The reward will have been wasted. To break free from this cycle is to reject the illusion that happiness is something that comes later. It is to master the present, to fully engage, to stop looking for meaning in the outcome and start creating it in the process. It is to realize that the grind itself is the reward, that every moment of struggle is shaping something greater than any external validation ever could. It is to understand that presence is power and that those who master it have no need for destinations. They are already where they need to be. The brain is an adaptable machine. It reshapes itself based on the habits it is fed, the patterns it repeats, the rewards it chases. Most spend their lives wiring it for dissatisfaction, constantly reinforcing the idea that happiness is always just beyond reach, after the next goal, the next achievement, the next milestone. But this is a trap, a design flaw that keeps the mind restless, hungry, unable to experience peace in the present. The way out is not through more achievement. It is through shifting the focus from outcome-based fulfillment to process-based engagement. When the work itself becomes the reward, the mind stops chasing illusions and starts building something real. Most are unaware that they're programming their own suffering. Every time fulfillment is tied to a future event, the brain strengthens the belief that satisfaction is conditional, always postponed, never now. This is why contentment feels impossible for so many. They've trained themselves to be dissatisfied, always reaching, never arriving. But when focus shifts to the process, when the act of doing becomes fulfilling in itself, something changes. The mind rewires itself. Instead of existing in a state of lack, it begins to find joy in engagement, curiosity in effort, purpose in the moment rather than in a hypothetical future. The mind resists this shift at first. It craves validation, immediate gratification, the rush of achievement. It will try to convince you that if you are not moving forward at an obvious pace, then you are stagnant. But this is another deception. True mastery is built in the unseen hours, in the spaces where progress is invisible. When the process itself becomes the goal, the need for external markers of success disappears. There is a shift that happens when the process is prioritized over the reward. The mind stops running. Anxiety fades. Focus sharpens. Instead of feeling trapped by an endless pursuit of more, there is a deep sense of freedom in knowing that the reward is already here. The act of doing is enough. The journey itself is enough. And in this space, long-term contentment becomes not something to chase, but something that is simply cultivated through presence and effort. Curiosity is a natural byproduct of this mindset. When the brain is not constantly fixated on outcomes, it becomes open to experimentation, to exploration, to seeing each moment as an opportunity rather than a test. The ones who live this way do not approach their work with a sense of burden. They are not shackled by the need for perfection. They are engaged, adaptable, willing to push boundaries without fear of failure. This is the space where real growth happens, where innovation is born, where every task becomes an opportunity for deeper understanding. Most will never rewire themselves this way. They will remain addicted to results, unable to enjoy the work unless it comes with immediate gratification. Their minds will stay restless, trapped in a cycle of expectation and disappointment. But for those who make the shift, life changes. No longer are they victims of their own need for validation. No longer are they waiting to feel fulfilled. They are already there, fully immersed in their craft, building something far greater than external success. An unshakable state of mind. To live in this state is to move differently. There is no need for constant reassurance, no hunger for recognition. There is only the work, the focus, the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing that every moment spent refining, sharpening, and improving is its own reward. The need for external validation fades into the background. Presence takes over, and with it comes a peace that no amount of achievement could ever provide. This is not a theory, it is a practice, a choice made in every moment. Perfection is the lie that keeps people running in circles. The mind clings to the illusion that one day everything will fall into place, that a final moment of absolute stability will arrive, a time when there will be no more problems, no more struggles, no more uncertainty. This belief is a trap, a mirage designed to keep people forever reaching, forever unsatisfied, forever chasing something that does not exist. Life is governed by entropy, by change, by the inevitable dissolution of everything that was once solid. There is no final state, no permanent arrival. The moment stability is reached, the decay begins. Some spend their lives resisting this truth. They structure their days in a way that avoids discomfort, that shields them from the chaos of the world, that gives them the illusion of control. But control is temporary. Nothing remains as it is. The moment one problem is solved, another appears. The second one challenge is overcome, the next one rises. And those who cling to the idea that stability will one day be achieved are the ones most devastated when reality reminds them that everything they built is subject to collapse. This is the nature of existence: constant movement, endless fluctuation, the destruction of what is old to make way for what is new. Those who understand this do not waste their time seeking a final resting place, a permanent state of comfort. They move with life instead of against it, embracing the uncertainty, adapting to the shifts, accepting that the only thing that can be relied upon is change itself. Stability is not the goal. Mastery of movement is. To seek perfection is to fight a losing battle. The idea that life can be arranged into a flawless, controlled system is one of the greatest illusions ever created. The ones who attach their happiness to this fantasy are the ones most easily broken, most easily lost when things do not go according to plan. They mistake temporary order for permanence, never realizing that what feels stable today is already unraveling beneath the surface. The greatest mistake is to live under the assumption that progress leads to a finish line. There is no finish line, no point where all struggles vanish, no moment where every piece of the puzzle is locked into place. Life is not something to be completed, it is something to be endured, to be engaged with fully, to be navigated with the understanding that nothing stays the same. Those who embrace this move differently, they do not cling to what was or fear what is to come. They sharpen themselves for the inevitable turbulence, knowing that resilience is not built in comfort but in adaptation. Every system deteriorates, every structure eventually falls apart, every peak is followed by a descent. This is not failure. This is the natural order. The ones who understand this do not mourn when the old collapses. They are already preparing for what comes next.